This is the Arlene Bynon Show on Canada Talks.
Wilbur Ross, who was the U.S. Commerce Secretary, may have lost a power struggle to the U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer on who's going to control the free trade negotiations with Canada and Mexico. And what does this mean for Canada? Mark Warner is joining us, international trade lawyer and principal of MAAW Law. Mark Warner, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Who would you rather have if you're Canada, Wilbur Ross or Robert Lighthizer? I'm kind of thinking Lighthizer.
Yeah, Lighthizer. So, I mean, look, I think a couple of things about this. I've never understood, and I think I've said it in talking to you before, I never understood why the Canadian government was so invested and so committed with the notion that Secretary of State Wilbur Ross, Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross would lead the negotiations. Under American law and practice, the person who leads the negotiations is the USTR. Trump had a hard time getting him nominated, and when he was eventually nominated, it was always going to be Lighthizer. And I've said so thousands of interviews, and for whatever reason, the Minister of Foreign Affairs kept repeating that it was going to be Ross. And anyways, as a trade lawyer, I never understood why she would get involved in their business, but the universe is unfolding exactly as it's supposed to. My view is Lighthizer, each one of them brings different benefits. Ross, I think, has some kind of a personal relationship of some sort with our Foreign Affairs Minister Freeland, from what I can tell from her New York days. And I think she feels that that's an affinity that she's comfortable negotiating with, as does Brian Mulroney, the former Prime Minister, who has been helping the government to some degree. But from my perspective, perhaps as a trade lawyer, Lighthizer knows the details. He knows the substance. And Ross wouldn't have that ability to either enter into those kind of detailed negotiations or to really lead his team. So I feel more comfortable having Lighthizer there because he knows the details. Now, they're protectionists. Ross is a protectionist. He's a steel business guy from the steel industry. Whereas Lighthizer is a trade lawyer who's represented the steel industry. So it's 6.5 dozen of the other, but I always think it's better to have smarter people who know what they're talking about at the table.
It is. And, as we look to this, from the beginning, Lighthizer, he was saying, wasn't he the one saying it's not going to be that? He was more optimistic as he talked about it. That must mean something.
Well, I generally think we need to sort of hold back from some of these sort of minute-to-minute, day-to-day analysis. I mean, we're parsing every sentence, and we've been doing it for like the last 9 months. I think that Lighthizer, in some respects, as I say, is a detail guy. So he said, look, we can add on things to TPP. He's not talking about a timeline of let's do it tomorrow. On the other hand, he's a guy, if you're reading the papers today, everyone's in Canada going nuts about Chapter 19, the dispute settlement review system that reviews anti-dumping and countervailing duty. Now, Lighthizer, I would say, is probably a stronger opponent of Chapter 19 dispute settlement than Ross would be. So, as I say, it's 6.5 dozen. He talks a language that is more moderate, more nuanced, because he's a trade lawyer. But in terms of Ross, perhaps is a bit more of a deal maker. Each one of them. The truth of the matter is, and I used to work at the OECD in Paris, and my job was to keep several trading partners happy. The United States, Europe, Japan, and to some limited extent Canada. And then within the United States, I had to keep several different agencies happy. I had to keep the USTR, Department of Commerce, and in some cases the Antitrust Division and the Federal Trade Commission on the files that I worked on. So the Americans have what they call an interagency process. And it's something that, I don't think other governments or trading partners fully understand. Wasn't invented by Donald Trump. But these agencies, Commerce, USTR, Treasury, all work together to develop positions. And, Commerce traditionally tends to represent more of the industry, the producer interest. The trading interests are tended to be more represented by USTR. USTR has a separate reporting role directly to Congress. So that's another piece of the puzzle. And Congress, of course, has an important part of the approval process, even under what's called the fast-track TPA authority. So without getting too detailed into the weeds of it, I think the universe is unfolding as it should. We're now going to enter into a series of negotiations.
But let me ask you, as you were talking about the dispute panels, we have word that our prime minister is prepared to walk. So here is the negotiating tactics coming out here.
Well, what else would he say? I mean, I'm listening to people again. I wish there were a way I could give.
Yeah, but he didn't say it before, and now he's saying it. He never said that before.
But of course, but what else would Canada say at the start of a negotiation? I mean, there is nothing else the Prime Minister can say. He can't walk into, before they've even sat down on August 16th, and say to the Canadian media, oh, I'm prepared to negotiate that away. I mean, I don't understand the frenzied tone of the coverage of this thing has got to stop, or we're all going to have a heart attack in the country.
Oh no, we can all take it. We can take it because we're dealing with a volatile president, of course. And I know diplomatically, we're all supposed to be smiling about it, but let's face it, this is war. This is NAFTA war.
I don't know. I don't see it that. I mean, I guess because I've been doing this day to day for like almost 30 years. To me, this has been my life. So I think the universe, as I say, is unfolding as it should, as it usually would. And I would expect the Canadian government to say that it's a red line. I hope that in the background they have people, lawyers and economists, quietly trying to understand whether, in fact,
it is a red line.
Is it a red line? I mean, how many Chapter 19 cases can you name? I know, and I'm a trade lawyer, and I can't name very many in the last 10 or 15 years. So if we're going to have a red line for something that's not being used, just keep in mind that means that we're trading it away for something else that might be more valuable to us.
All right.
So it might be one of those Pyrrhic victories where we say, we won Chapter 19, but we lost 100 other things. So,
Good warning. Good warning there. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us, and we'll talk the next time that we overreact to some other detail that we found out.
I'm sorry for saying it like that. I got to calm everyone down. It's okay. That's my job in the role. My role in this process.
Mark Warner, thank you.
You're welcome.
We're calmer now. Mark is an international trade lawyer, principal of MAAW Law.